Hey guys, let's talk more about these colonies. So the European countries are all about God, gold, and glory. So they're going around the world and they're setting up colonies. The effects of this would be Christianity spreading because they are converting the native people that they encounter to Christianity. Also, new political developments. Now, when we talk politics or political throughout the year, I want you to think about government. So political just means government, and in this case, new forms of government in colonial areas. Social developments have to do with people, religion, culture. So if I say social developments, that's what we're talking about. And in this case, Christianity spreads to new lands and the population is going to grow in America. The population is also going to go down in Africa, which we'll talk about in just a second. Economic means money. So money, jobs. Economic developments during this time would be trade routes shifting from the Mediterranean now to the Atlantic Ocean. Capitalism and mercantilism are used to promote trade because we know it's all about the money. Now, mercantilism is the belief that the wealth of the nation is based on its supply of gold and silver. So basically, more money equals more power. And for mercantilism, the benefit would be for the mother country. The mother country is going to get this money. So mercantilism, money, mother country. More money, more power. Capitalism is all about profits for the individual. So private ownership of the business. It's not the mother country making the money. It's whoever owns that business. France, England, Spain, Portugal, and the Netherlands are all setting up colonies, so they're all experiencing these different types of developments, and they're all making some money. They're all looking for God, gold, and glory. Some people are moving to the Americas for religious freedom, and some people are moving to the Americas because they want a new start. They want to have a chance to become wealthy themselves. The mother country is looking for money, and the colonies are going to give them gold, silver, furs, and cash crops. Now, we're going to talk a little bit about slavery because this is where slavery sort of fits in, especially with these large plantations. Portugal is the first European nation to have settlements in West Africa, or to have some trading posts in West Africa. The Portuguese trade spices, gold, and ivory, all things that come from Africa that they wanted, but they eventually start trading slaves. Now, people think that the Portuguese just went into Africa and started stealing people, and that wasn't typically what happened. Tribal leaders or African leaders would capture their enemies, prisoners of war. Sometimes it was also people that had committed crimes, and they would sell them to the Portuguese. Spain was one of the first countries to trade slaves to the Americas. The slaves were considered property and they were to work on plantations. Now, this is a little bit different than in the past where slaves could maybe run back to their homeland, or they could eventually earn their freedom. Now they're on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean, so that's not going to happen. The people preferred Africans over Native Americans as slaves because Africans were less likely to get sick from disease. Also, Native Americans knew the land and could easily run away. The Middle Passage we're going to spend a lot more time talking about, but it's the route from Africa to the Americas. It's these big ships holding the slaves and taking them across the ocean. These people were not treated as people, they were treated as cargo, and because of that, conditions were horrible. A lot of people died of disease or malnutrition. We'll spend a lot more time talking about that later on. Here's a picture. So here you can see how the trade routes start to go across the Atlantic Ocean, and we're going to call it the triangular trade because it makes a triangle. So in Europe, they have things like pots, pans, guns, alcohol, horses, things that Africans would want. So they bring those items to the western side of Africa and trade those items for slaves. Slaves then travel across the Middle Passage to the Americas, where they're then sold to work on plantations. Those big plantations are growing cash crops, and so those cash crops are being then sent back to Europe. Cash crops like sugar, cotton, rum, tobacco, coffee. And so the trade just continues in that triangle. So the slave trade causes a lot of impacts in the Americas and in Africa. 15 million Africans were enslaved. We don't know how many million of Africans died along the way, but it was many. It left few African males in Africa and just a lower population in general in Africa. Also, it caused a lot more warring between African tribes because they could sell prisoners of war or people from the other tribes as slaves to make money. Slavery in America was outlawed later on in the 1700s, which we'll talk about later, but after that, people still have slaves. And the Civil War ended slavery in the South, also something we'll talk about later on. All right, that's it for today. Have a good one.